Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, it's day 5 of camp. You're going to have to forgive the brain. How's it going?
Did you forget what you were going to ask me there, or was that your typical power pause? Because now I'm starting to wondering if you're...
No. How's it going, Tom?
Okay. It's going well, Tony. I really didn't think about what I threw on today.
Look at you.
Have an Ohio University polo on. I was standing talking to Air Noland. There were a couple of Ohio State tight ends there who commented on my shirt. Neither of them was Will Kuzmarek, who went to Ohio University. Both of Jace Middleton and Jelani Thurman pointed and said, wrong Ohio. It's like, well, I mean, sometimes we just wear clothes because society tells us that we must. So
that's the shirt that the hand picked out that morning, basically.
Yes.
So we did speak with Chip Kelly and all 5 scholarship quarterbacks: Will Howard, Devin Brown, Lincoln Kienholz, Julian Sayin, and Air Noland. First time talking to Noland and Sayin. Only the third time we've talked to Chip Kelly since he's been here. One time in spring, and then after the spring game, and then this time now after practice 5 of fall camp. So a bunch to go over. Go ahead and throw your questions in there, and we will get to those. Obviously, Super Chats will go to the front of the line. And just go ahead and hit the thumbs up right now before you even do any of that. We would appreciate it. So I'm
going to ask you a question, because we were discussing beforehand, was this going to be a morning show or Buckeye Weekly? And I thought, if it's a morning show, I know the first thing I'm going to ask him. You put something on our board at BuckeyeHuddle.com in the middle of the interviews about Chip Kelly, what Chip Kelly was asked about and what Chip Kelly was not asked about. And I thought, it feels like sometimes there's sort of like this unspoken thing in the room. What was the thing that you put on the board?
Yeah, there were, of the, 12, 15 minutes with Chip Kelly, not a single question about Devin Brown. And, there's a quarterback competition going on. So I think that was, it's certainly notable. Also tells you where the media's mindset is with this. And I mentioned that to a former, a current longtime member of the Ohio State beat. And he's like, well, Devin's also the one we know the most about. So
that's true.
That's true. But still, there's a quarterback there. In theory, there's a quarterback competition going on. Quarterbacks are still getting reps.
We knew a lot about Devin Brown and Kyle McCord this time last year, and I think there were questions getting asked about both of those guys this time last year.
Yeah, it's just very, I guess you would say, foregone conclusion. And it's kind of been that way in my mind, your mind. But like to see it in action like that, where it's just like, what about Will? And then can Will do this and this and that? And Chip, what do you think about this? But also, again, our third time talking to Chip. So there's still questions about Chip, your relationship with Ryan Day, what's that like? Things like that. So there's still a lot of housekeeping that is going on. So it wasn't just quarterbacks, but I just thought that was interesting. The only 2 quarterbacks that were asked about, Julian Sayin and Will Howard.
And, both are sort of new and shiny, and you've seen the flashes. I think you've seen the potential upside with both of those guys. So, and I think that, if you are putting a gun to my head, I think that the race for the second quarterback position is maybe the most interesting and exciting one on the roster right now, because I feel like I can kind of tell you who's probably going to be number 1. Number 2, it feels like there's, theoretically, this is all still open competitions, and maybe the whole beat has misinterpreted things. That is possible. That does happen, but it feels
not to me.
It feels like Devin Brown versus Julian Sayin for the number 2 position, and that's maybe the most interesting thing right now. And there's a whole separate conversation about if Julian Sayin is viewed as the number 2 quarterback, but if Will Howard was number 1 and got hurt or was unavailable for whatever reason, you might still put the veteran guy in there to play, even if you did think so. So, there's a bunch of different angles to this whole thing, and we're making several assumptions here, but it sort of feels to me like that's kind of where things are right now.
Yeah, and talking with Devin Brown, I asked him, what is the difference between camp this year and camp last year? And he's like, right now, there are no nerves. And just the comfort level is much higher. Obviously, he knows much more about the offense, has gone through it, but like there's no butterflies or anything like that. You're just going and playing. Will Howard was asked, are you operating as if you were the starter? And he's just like, I'm just trying to put one day in front of the other, stack days, do that sort of thing. And you mentioned new and shiny. Will Howard looks like a different person than the one we saw in spring, or did we even see him in winter? I forget, but he was, we saw him, I remember the first time I saw him, like, wow, that is a big dude. And then you see him now, it's like, that guy has thinned out. I think they said he lost 15 pounds since he's arrived. Looks a bit more chiseled than he did. He said there was, when he first weighed in at like 249, there were some murmurs, and Mick got on him a little bit, Mickey Marotti, and they put him to work, and with the weight staff, the nutrition with Kienholz. He said he's been cooking at home quite a bit. He lives alone, so it makes him feel kind of like a grown-up, where he can just kind of do that sort of thing. So he's kind of reshaped himself physically, and that's not the most important thing. The football aspect of it as well. He talked about his footwork is better. The zip he's increased the zip because he has a better understanding of where the ball is going. Chip said the same thing. Like, when you know where it's going, you can throw it a little bit better, or a lot bit better.
Yeah, and he also, Chip Kelly, talked about Will Howard and just how quick he is, how fast he is. He said, they clock him, and there was a point during one sprint where he was going 22 miles an hour, which is insanely fast for a guy who's 230 pounds or whatever he is, 235 pounds. Very big dude, quick. We saw him last week in one of the practices take just a QB power run and take it. He got tagged down because there was someone sort of in the within the punt halo of him, basically on the sideline. Very well could have been an 80-yard touchdown run. He brings that to Ohio State's offense, which is something they really have not had and been able to rely on since, Justin Fields could do it, but how much do they want to rely on him? More in 2019 than 2020. But, it has been a minute since they've had that element to their game. And he also, you touched on it there briefly, but he talked about the coaching he's gotten. What has been different about your development as a passer since you were at Kansas State? He talked about all the different coaching. They have basically 4 quarterback coaches on this team, if you include Ryan Day and Chip Kelly and Billy Fessler. I mean, you've got a ton of quarterback instruction on this team. Talked about cleaning up his footwork, talked about cleaning up his mechanics, talked about working on his reads, all that kind of stuff. And as a veteran guy, you've sort of seen it all at this point. It's going to be a different offense, but you've seen a lot of different defensive looks over the years. So you're not going to get completely blindsided. You can always kind of refer back to previous experience. It just feels like between the running and the passing, it feels like he's come a significant way just since this spring when, Devin Brown, there were times this spring when Devin Brown clearly looked better than Will Howard. But, at the time we were kind of going, let's see what it looks like in the fall because Will Howard is, brand new to a lot of this. Devin Brown has looked solid. Devin Brown has looked good this fall. This is not Will Howard winning this job by, just by default if he does win it. But, it feels like Will Howard has really made some significant progress, and maybe he's approaching this season in the same way that a lot of the guys who returned to Ohio State are, where it's, there's a lot of focus based on, look, everyone came back here for a reason. Will Howard came to Ohio State for a reason. It feels like everyone sort of got that same focus going.
Yeah, and it's really difficult at times to get questions in. One of the questions I did want to ask ask the quarterbacks, Will specifically, is when you have this many people returning, what kind of responsibility does that put on your shoulders? And that's probably one of those things where it's like, I try not to think about that. I'm just worried about me. I'm not trying to worry about everybody else. But he also just said, the difference, one of the differences between Ohio State and Kansas State is he just needs to be a facilitator. He doesn't have to do anything on his own. He doesn't have to carry anybody on his own. He just has to get the ball to all of the different players and hand the ball off, be a running threat, and just be part of the game plan. He doesn't have to be the entire game plan or carry this or carry that. Though he will carry the ball. He said, I'll carry it wherever. And I want my teammates to know that. I will go and try to pick up that first down with my legs if I have to. I will lower my shoulder, whatever it takes. I will do that. Chip Kelly said, we're not going to run anybody 25 times a game. He compared his mobility to Josh Allen, that kind of thing, where Josh Allen is a freak athlete, but just a guy that will keep plays alive, can keep plays alive, but also can turn a 6-yard gain into a 60-yard gain. He's done it 3 times in his career. He did it this weekend at Ohio State. So I think good things going there, but I still want to see it. I wrote in What I Know, What I Wonder last night that I don't recall seeing him throw an interception yet in camp. He mentioned that he thinks he's had a really good camp in terms of keeping protecting the football.
Mhm.
I know I've seen everybody else throw one.
Yeah, I think I'm remembering one
I can't
from one of
remember
the
if I saw one.
practices. Yeah,
But-
I mean,
But he said he's doing a good job of protecting the
Yeah.
ball and knowing when to take deep shots. We've seen Devin Brown take more of those.
Yeah.
But he just said, I'm just reading and checking the coverages, and if the guy is open, then I'll throw it deep. And I ask him, so what does seeing somebody open deep, what does open mean? And is it just no safety over the top? He's like, yeah, kind of like that. Like, I trust my guys in a one-on-one, and even if there's a quarter safety over there and I think I can get it, it's still, you see that guy is open.
Yeah, and this is one of these things where you're playing probably some better competition this year than you did in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
Big 12, obviously, a power conference. This is not, you're coming up from D3 or anything, but you have some of the better defenses in the country in the Big 10. But no disrespect to the Kansas State wide receivers, I think you're probably working with a different caliber of athlete at the wide receiver position, where it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be just get it in the kind of zip code, and you kind of just assume your guy is going to get it more often than not, and that's a real luxury, and that probably opens things up. And the more I think he gets comfortable with that, the more you're going to see the deep throws, because he's got the arm to make the deep throws. This is not, this is not a guy who just like, oh, he can't throw the deep out. Like, no, he has the arm. We've seen the accuracy there. It's probably a little bit of getting comfortable, getting comfortable.
We're getting instructions.
We're getting yes.
Sorry,
getting instructions. So the green dot and radios getting instructions in terms of what's going on. Well, good news, we can stay. So there we go. No softball in here
unless
yes.
we're blocking somebody eventually.
Yes, but yeah, he's someone who I think is getting, as he gets more comfortable, you're going to see. Right now, don't make mistakes and just be consistent is probably what is going to decide this, and who gives him the best chance to win. Once it's your job and you feel it's your job and you continue to develop things, and you see defenses sucking up to take away the short stuff, that's going to open up the deep stuff.
Well, and also, as I wrote, like, there's a time and a place for that deep ball. Generally not when Caleb Downs is playing center field, or like when Denzel Burke is on your Z receivers a walk on. It's like, I'm probably not going to throw that one. Stuff like that. Who are you with?
The only person over on my table was Air Noland.
Okay.
Got a chance to talk to him for a little bit. He talked about Chip Kelly, what he's learned from Chip Kelly, and just going through your reads. He is at the point now where stuff is slowing down a little bit for him. He talked about this spring getting a little homesick when he was here, and that's something we had sort of heard at the time, but. This is now sort of okay. He's now sort of into the rhythm of things. This is feeling like home, and working with Chip Kelly. I think all the quarterbacks have learned a lot from him, but the freshmen especially, just picking up stuff, just listening. Chip Kelly has a long history of teaching quarterbacks, and has sort of seen it all over the years. So talked about how valuable it's been to work with Chip Kelly and the other coaches on the staff.
I missed just about all of Julian Sayin, but. I did hear him say, not really. We asked, like, are you thinking about the starting job? And it's when you're a freshman Will Howard said it as a fifth-year senior. I'm just trying. You put one day on top of the other. If you start looking ahead, you're going to trip over Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, trying to think about Saturday. So
I was over there a little bit. So yeah,
I don't care about that. Go ahead.
He was asked about the decision to transfer from Alabama and what was behind that, and he said he went to Alabama to go play for Nick Saban. That was that's not exactly a revolutionary thought. That's been a thing that has drawn a lot of folks to Alabama since 2007, and said really he didn't have any kind of relationship with Kellen DeBoer and the new coaching staff, because they didn't really recruit him at Washington, because he was he's a Southern kid. He's not going to go to the Pacific Northwest. So he was he really didn't have any kind of a relationship there. So when they showed up, he he knew he kind of had to make a quick decision, because he had already enrolled. The quarter, the semester, wherever you're going, that's already rolling or about to get rolling. So you really didn't have a lot of time. So he went into the portal, said he had a couple days, had a good relationship, had visited Ohio State before, had a good relationship with Ryan Day, knew Chip Kelly because he was from when Chip Kelly was at UCLA. So, had a relationship there, and, he said, oh, you look at the quarterbacks that Ohio State has put out over the years. Ohio State has put out a ton of good quarterbacks over the years, and now you've got C.J. Stroud to point to. Now you've got Justin Fields to point to. Dwayne Haskins was a first-round pick. I mean, they have had a series of quarterbacks here under Ryan Day.
Joe Burrow,
yes. He was, all of these guys Ryan Day has had some kind of an impact on. And, so the development's there, the talent levels there. You're playing at the, Alabama tier of the sport, whether they're higher or lower at any given year, it sort of depends. But you're not going from Alabama to Kentucky or Alabama to Michigan State. It's, sort of the same level of the sport. So there was a lot to like there, and that made it a pretty easy decision for him.
Yeah, I remember talking to his high school coach, I think in the spring or the winter, and he said he wants to win a national championship. So you're going to look. It's a very small group of schools you're going to look to, and when you've got one that you already have a relationship with, it kind of became a no-brainer at that point. I did not get to talk with Lincoln much, but again, we said it, I think, on yesterday's show or the show before that, the day before yesterday's show. He looks also bigger. Like he was overwhelmed last year, and he looks like he's obviously been in the weight room, and we've seen him running mostly splitting third team reps with Julian Sayin as they go back and forth. Chip Kelly did say that don't read into anything with the reps. Don't read into any of the orders. That's just the way things are going. And coaches will always say that, and it will never be listened to. And I think it's true.
Well,
I think it's, you read into everything. And a lot of it is turns out to be true.
You read into everything, and you probably shouldn't read into everything, but you shouldn't read into nothing.
Yeah.
Either. I mean, there's, it's like at some point when certain guys are repping with the ones consistently, and Will Howard, I think I saw someone say that Will Howard had basically all but one snap with the ones on offense on one of the practice days. At some point that kind of means something. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but I'm saying there's probably a better than 0.5 correlation between guys who are repping with the ones and guys who end up with the ones. I do want to correct myself before you get a chance to. I think Julian Sayin was a Southern quarterback. I meant to say a Southern California quarterback.
That's all the South to me.
Yeah, it's all. I mean, deep South.
Once you're below I-70,
it's all the same. Yes, exactly.
Yes. Kevin, any questions? Oh.
I don't like it when he says,
I know.
"Oh yeah," with like, "Oh boy."
First question is from the football extraordinaire. Where have you seen Will Howard improve the most so far, and what do you like about him if he were named the starter, which he probably will?
What do we like about Will Howard, what we have seen the most so far, and how would we feel about him if he was named the starter? Like, I feel like he's the best option, so you have to feel good about that. His ability to run is something that they're looking for, and all of the guys can run. Chip Kelly said they're all running over 20 miles per hour. And
which is nuts, by the way. That's fast.
Yeah,
that's really fast.
And the just so you know, miles per hour has essentially replaced the 40. Like, players don't even run the 40 anymore.
Right, yeah.
They're just getting time to all their running.
The only person who they don't measure in miles per hour is Max LeBlanc, of course, because he's from Canada, so it's kilometers per hour for him.
So he's probably the fastest then?
I'll explain conversions after the show, but that's fine.
The highest
number, yes.
But where he has improved the most, he talked about arm strength, the zip, that sort of thing, the understanding of everything, which makes all of the decisions better. He talked about his pre-snap reads are better, his post-snap understanding what happens, and where to go. Like, all of this, the mental aspects of it have improved. The playbook, Chip Kelly said he was great in the playbook in the off season, great in the film room. So there's improvement everywhere, but the footwork, the accuracy, those sorts of things, that the question marks that you had about him at Kansas State have been the area, I think, of most improvement in his mind.
Well, he's someone you brought in, and I think brought in as a raise the floor kind of guy, where you knew you had a Power 5 starting quarterback caliber guy who had the track record of doing it and also staying healthy. Because I think Devin Brown very easily could have been a Power 5 starting quarterback at a whole lot of places last year and just has had trouble staying healthy. So, you want to make sure you kind of have another option there. But since he's gotten here, I think we've seen, leaned out, as you said, but also the improvement in the passing. the fact that the passing has been improved so much, that really raises the ceiling now, where it's not just a high floor. He's potentially now a high ceiling guy with the guys around him, with the addition of Chip Kelly in terms of what he brings in terms of the run game and the run game strategy and scheme. It just feels like this is all kind of coalescing into a really good fit for Will Howard, for maximizing what Will Howard can be. And Will Howard right now, I don't know that I think Will Howard can win the Heisman, but I think Will Howard can win the national championship. I think Will Howard is, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he puts up crazy numbers this year. We'll see. But I think I came out of spring ball with some questions in terms of the supporting cast is so good. He probably doesn't have to be great to win a national championship. Now it feels like he could be somewhere between very good and great this year, which is more than good enough to win the national
Well, and I'll
championship.
just correct you. If you are good enough to lead your team to a national championship, that automatically means you get Heisman votes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're kind of grandfathered in. You qualify
Well,
for both.
are you
It's
automatically going to the Heisman ceremony in New York? Is what I guess. Are you one of the top 3 guys in the Heisman?
Is he a quarterback?
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Does he play in a big school?
This may say more about the Heisman Trophy than it does about
How
my
dare
opinion
you, sir?
here.
I will want to say one other thing on Chip Kelly. As he was walking off, I asked him, "Are you going to be upstairs? Or are you going to be on the sideline?" Said they're still working on that. The last time he was
That means he wants to be on the sideline, and other people want him up in the booth. Is what that means.
And the last time he was in the booth was as an offensive coordinator at Oregon, so like 2006 or so. So it's been a while. He's very comfortable calling from the field because he's done it his entire career as the head coach.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of eyes upstairs. What kind of feedback are you getting from up there? But if Ryan Day's going to let him do what he wants, got to let him do what he wants.
You have to put Ryan Day up in the booth. I mean, I don't know. That doesn't. What's your veteran set of eyes up in the booth if Chip Kelly's down on the sideline?
Well, and you mentioned Billy Fessler, who's a guy that he's familiar with, was the quarterback's coach at UCLA for him. Tim Drevno
was the guy who I thought might
that's
be
my
the
first
answer
thought
there.
is that we know Keenan Bailey was up there last year, so he's got some experience. But it's just a matter of was that a bad experience for Ryan Day last year?
Well, and I think there's a value to having a Kevin Wilson type up there, where a lot like we were talking about with Will Howard earlier, where Will Howard as a 5th-year guy has kind of seen it all, and I know this, I recognize this. There's a certain value to just the reps and the, you want to call it the 10,000 hours, whatever you want to. Just the guy who's been doing this for 20 years, 25 years, having that set of eyes up in the booth where it's, I've seen this. I don't need to think about this. It's just, I saw this, and this is who did it. And hey, this is how we attacked it wherever I was back then. And so I think having someone up there, Keenan Bailey up there, absolutely, sure, whatever. Like if that works, or Brian Hartline or whoever it is up there. I feel like having someone. Tim Drevno's the guy who came to mind this year. Joe, what's his name from the Dolphins last year?
Yeah.
Joe Philbin. That type of guy who has kind of done this for a long time. I think there's value in having that guy up there. Having a Jim Knowles up there as your defensive coordinator, I think, is very valuable.
Yeah. Kevin?
Yeah, Rusty Jesse. If Howard has a big year and ends up going in the first or second round next year, does that cement Kelly/Day as great quarterback coaches / developers, as opposed to just having really talented kids?
So if Will Howard has a great year, goes in the first round next year, does that cement Chip Kelly and Ryan Day as being great quarterback developers and not just having great talent? I mean, there's lots of great quarterbacks every year that show up on college campuses as 5-star prospects who don't pan out. I mean, just having the talent, having the arm talent, doesn't mean that is not an automatic guarantee of future. I mean, pick a year of the last 6-7 years and look at how many of the top 10 quarterbacks in that class you're kind of going, oh yeah, I forgot about that guy. It's going to be like 6 or 7 every year. So, with Ryan Day's history of success at the quarterback position, I think it's pretty hard to look at that track record and go, yeah, he's probably just gotten lucky like 5 times in a row.
I'm just thinking, I kind of reject the premise, but also I would say yes. I won't reject it entirely. I would agree in terms of I think you'll obviously get more credit. But I think Ryan Day gets plenty of credit. I mean, not to turn the show on, but completely on its ear, but like Jim Harbaugh, quarterback whisperer for Andrew Luck for getting that credit, where he was a generational prospect, but he is the quarterback whisperer, the developer of quarterbacks because of that one guy, basically. And I think the track record here for Ryan Day, we saw improvement with JT Barrett. And I'll just say Joe Burrow was with him for 18 months or so, CJ Stroud he became a 5-star, but, he developed. And so I think it would be, you check a box for Ryan Day and Chip Kelly if they can turn somebody that everybody laughed at. Yeah. When they land him out of the transfer portal, Will Howard, that's your guy. Yeah. If they can turn him into a day 1 or day 2 pick, that's pretty. You give some credit for that one.
Well, and you got to remember, I think the narrative around Will Howard when Will Howard showed up was, Kansas State was fine with letting him go because they had their new shiny guy who was gonna, Will Howard had lost the starting job at Kansas State, and it's like, not right quite in that way, no. But if he turns into a first-round pick, I don't think it should make a material difference in terms of how Ryan Day is viewed. It might make a material difference in how some people view him.
Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, Lisa Sims, I got a question. Who do you think will be our next elite Heisman finalist quarterback to replace Stroud?
Next elite Heisman finalist quarterback to replace Stroud. I guess I have gone on the record in saying I don't think that's going to be Will Howard. I think Will Howard's going to have a very, very good year. I don't know if he's going to put up the shiny passing stats and the shiny total yardage stats and touchdown stats. Maybe he will, and maybe I'm wrong on that. But if I'm betting on who's the next guy, I mean, it feels like it's someone on the roster, and it feels like, if I'm going to pick someone right now and it's not Will Howard, I think I'm going to go with Julian Sayin.
That's where the money would be. If this is a bet, that's where he would be the favorite. That's the one you would bet on just because that's the most likely to happen. Yeah. What about number 2, who might not even be on the roster right now?
Might be playing in Bellefontaine, Ohio now.
Or yes, that's the answer. Or maybe there's the transfer portal is no joke. So it could be somebody from Kansas State.
Could be. That would be really funny if there was just a Kansas State to Ohio State pipeline.
We've seen it with the Alabama centers. It was a while ago when Ohio,
but Chad Lindsley has been
it's been a while. Kevin.
Yes, from X Boom Boom X11. That's a mouthful. Did Chip say what kind of style he plans to bring to this offense?
Well, Chip Kelly style of offense. It's the Ohio State offense, Tom. Just so you know. But he talked about when how Ryan Day mentioned how Chip Kelly's running style has changed or whatever, and Chip's like, my style changes based on the personnel and what we can do, what we can't do, what our strengths are, and how we can hide our weaknesses. So it just depends on who you've got, and that's something that Jim Tressel would always talk about. You play the guys that you have, and you try to accentuate what they can do. You don't try to fit everybody into this one thing. I run this offense,
right?
And I know you could think, but Jim Tressel's offense never changed. But when they had Troy Smith in 2006, it was a spread offense, and when they didn't, they would do different things. But so you utilize the guys that you have, and it's no different. You utilize the thing that your offensive line can do best, confidence in the offensive line. People are speaking highly of it today, the quarterbacks and Chip Kelly as well. Said he thinks he sees the makings of a very good offensive line. So it's like, what can the offensive line do? What do your quarterbacks do? What do your running backs do best? How well do your receivers block? What kind of routes are best for the offensive line? So you're still figuring all of this out. And then it's still going to very much look like an Ohio State offense that you've become accustomed to. But also, remember, 2019, 2020, this team ran the ball down people's throats a lot. You're talking 260 yards a game, I think, in 2019. And they may have hit 260 yards once or twice in the last 2 or 3 years.
I'm hearing a lot of 2020 predictions in my head is what I'm
220.
220s. Feels like it might. Tony, I think this is finally the year that comes through for me.
You keep thinking about that.
I'm very upset about Tom's OU shirts.
Okay, so I can't wear green. I can't wear blue.
So only warmer shades.
Yeah.
And I don't know. What is green? That's not cool. That's not warm. That's just.
The Bobcats are not on the schedule this year. It will be fine.
But there are 2 MAC teams, and I'm with you guys. I think it's disgusting.
Mhm.
Next question.
Another Tom-related question.
No,
Comment from
I'm
Billy
disgusted.
today. Tom looks like Lincoln's older brother. I'm not sure that's Kienholz.
Abraham Lincoln Kienholz. Lincoln Kienholz's older brother. I'm glad Lincoln Kienholz is not here to hear you say that.
Wouldn't you say like Lincoln Kienholz's dad?
Yeah, you're probably more likely to have a
Uncle. How about uncle?
Yeah, cool older uncle. Funkle, Tony. Lincoln Kienholz's Funkle. I will take that.
No. Next question.
Robert Howard. I was once again extremely impressed with Will Howard.
Will Howard and I mentioned.
And this guy's name is Robert Howard.
Mhm.
So Robert Howard said he was once again extremely impressed with Will Howard.
Mhm.
Talking with somebody else after we were done with that, it's like Will Howard's really good, and it's like
Yeah.
there are a couple guys on this team where you could talk to them like you're talking to no offense, but like you talk to an adult,
Mhm.
and or even talking to a coach in terms of speaking like next level stuff. And he's really comfortable talking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, he did come from Manhattan. So
Sure.
I'm sure he's used to big crowds, but
Mhm.
you see, you come from a smaller place to an Ohio State, and it's like, this is way different than anything we've ever seen. But he came in, and it's like, this is, whatever. I mean, he's very
Right.
comfortable.
Yeah, and he's been doing this for years and years and years now. So this is not a new thing for him. And he's also been around enough, much like having the reps to recognize defenses, having the reps. I'm sure this is not the first interview he's ever done. There are freshmen, and this is not just guys we talked to today, but just broadly speaking, there are freshmen who, you can ask a question and I'm just trying to get better every day. I'm just trying to there are 3 talking points that they have because they are terrified to say anything else. Will Howard knows. He's been around. He knows how to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
He knows he's not going to say, and we're going to beat everyone by 57 points this year. Like, he's not going to do that, but he's also not terrified to say anything because he's done it. Once you have the reps, once you've done it, you don't need to think about it as much. And so, yeah, and that's true on the field. That's true in the interview setting. That's true everywhere. And that's one of the advantages of going and getting a veteran in the transfer portal.
Yeah, it's like the whole, you don't be nervous when you know what you're doing or you know what you're talking about. There's no reason to be nervous. So, and he's certainly not when he's, and talking to the media, it's a pretty big deal. I'm just saying, Kevin. No. Anything else for you, Tom? We will talk to running backs and linebackers tomorrow. Right?
Yeah. I know it's running backs tomorrow. We have interviews every day. Yeah, running backs and linebackers tomorrow. We have interviews every day this week.
And perhaps practice on Thursday.
Yes.
Unless we get booted out. So that'll be interesting as well. So, again, go ahead and like this video if you're watching right now. We would appreciate that. That way, hit the bell to be notified because it's going to be, again, a busy week. Day 5, practice 5 of camp. I believe the first full day in full pads. But don't Google me on that. Or go ahead. Anything else, Tom? Do you want to? We're good?
No, I think we're good. Just make sure you check us out at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where have full coverage of the team and recruiting and X's and O's and all that kind of stuff. There's a ton of stuff going on right now. Obviously, a ton of stuff going on our YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell so you get notified when we go live because there's going to be a lot of live content for you this week. Interviews, post-interview shows, guys walking into hotels, like a little bit of something for everyone this week at BuckeyeHuddle.com and youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. And
we will have all 5 of the quarterbacks uploaded, the interview sessions uploaded shortly. Some of them are already there. I gotta get done with this and then get Sayin and Devin Brown uploaded so you guys can check that out as well. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.